Well, I think it's safe to say that he's never coming back. You know, I'd say he's gone, and he will never return. Yeah, no, I think he's gone. I wonder what happened. Did he get hit by a bus, die, change careers, become a Sharks fan? No, I'm not dead. I'm right here. I never went anywhere. I've just been a little busier than these two lunatics can understand. But just to prove that I'm back. Here. 3, 2, 1. See? Back in black, baby. I'm ready to get this recap underway. Ooh, I've always wanted to try that. Here. No, wait, that's not it. Hold on. No, I mean, this is a little better, but still not quite what I'm going for. Hey, this is pretty fun. I could get used to this. Wait a second, when did I become Andrei Vasilevsky? Okay, knock it off. That's like too many transitions. Do you have any idea how long that's going to take to edit? A lot longer than either of you can understand. Wow, that's a lot of transitions. Can we talk about hockey now, please? I've been waiting like 2 weeks. One of the toughest midseason / stretch run opponents for the Golden Knights is the New Jersey Devils. They're a very good team, high octane offense, and one of the top dogs in the Eastern Conference. Now, this game, which was a 4-3 victory, saw something that has never happened in Golden Knights franchise history: a goalie basically stealing a game. That's the first time that's happened this year. And to have Adin Hill be the one to do it, especially in the absence of Logan Thompson, who is still out following the All-Star break, was really cool. He essentially just became a mountain. And if I had to title a reaction to this game all on its own, it would have been Aiden Mountain or something to that effect. 47 saves to set the Golden Knights franchise record is honestly impressive, and that's exactly why the Golden Knights were able to walk away with a 4-3 win. So this is Jonathan Quick's second game in a Golden Knights uniform. First, actually, with the start, as he was on the bench against the Devils when Hill decided to do Aiden Hill things. He made 25 saves in his Golden Knight debut, and the Golden Knights had leads of 3-0 and 4-1, and I know the final score was 4-3, but those last 2 goals was really because the defense forgot how to play defense in front of Jonathan Quick, and so he kind of wound up letting 2 goals in. It was a weird game, and it was not poorly played by the Golden Knights, but it wasn't the best game they had played to this point in that week, and so it was a sloppy win. The Devils are a scrappy, or not the Devils, the Canadiens are a scrappy team, and if you let the Canadiens stick around like the Golden Knights did in this instance, the game will get a little bit tighter than you would expect, and that's exactly what happened. Still, escape with 2 points. Now, this is really the first game since the All-Star break that the Golden Knights really haven't had much of a chance in. They got down early. Sure, they were able to score a power play goal for the first time in what feels like ages in the form of Shea Theodore, but beyond that, there's really nothing going. It wasn't a great game by any stretch of the imagination, but it wasn't a horrible game either. And so it's just one of those weird games throughout the regular season where, especially to kick off of a road trip, the Golden Knights just kind of didn't look quite like themselves. And it shows, given that it's the first time all year that the Golden Knights lost a game in regulation in which their opponents scored 2 goals or less. It just proves how much of an anomaly a game like this is, and it's not like anybody was there to see it. It was in Sunrise. The average attendance of that game was like 6 people. The trend of nail-biting 1-goal games continues as the Golden Knights travel to Tampa to finish up the Florida swing. The Golden Knights entered the 3rd period of this game in a 1-1 tie, and then quickly scored a shorthanded goal and a power play goal in the 3rd period to build a 3-1 lead, just to have it all evaporate away in the form of Tampa Bay and having an incredible power play and being really good with the goalie out, and the Golden Knights being bad at defense with the goalie out. What was a 3-1 game turned into a 3-3 game. And really, the watershed moment of this game was just the crazy moment of 10 skaters getting ejected, and Tampa really won that, battle in the form of only having the best player that they had get ejected was Pat Maroon, and the Golden Knights lost Keegan Kolesar, Zach Whitecloud, Nick Hague, Teddy Bluger, and whoever else was on that line. Holy moly, that was just one of the craziest things I've ever seen in a Knights game. Ultimately, the game does go to overtime. Midway through overtime, Jack Eichel takes a shot from the high slot, breaks its way through Andrei Vasilevsky, and we got a race on between Andrei Vasilevsky and Alec Martinez. Clearly, Martinez just has that dog in him or something. He sprinted in, dove in, took the net with him, but tapped it home just before Vazzy was able to get there to secure the Golden Knights a 4-3 win, and so far a split of the road trip. If the Golden Knights go on to win the Stanley Cup this year, this is the game that we need to look at, because this is exactly how the Golden Knights need to play. This is exactly what you would expect for them to in a textbook game. One of the best games they played all year. Quick records his first shutout in a Golden Knights uniform. The Hurricanes never really stood much of a chance in this one, if I'm going to be completely honest. The Golden Knights scored early. They scored often. They played from the front. They didn't let mistakes creep into their game. They played a full 60 minutes for what feels like the first time since like October. And it really showed, shutting down one of the best teams in the NHL. And on the tail end of the back-to-back of what was the greatest game of the year to this point, the Golden Knights have a game of dueling firsts. It's a back-to-back with travel, going from North Carolina to St. Louis to play the Blues. And instead of worrying about the carousel of goaltending, since at this point Adin Hill, Logan Thompson, and Laurent Brossoit were both out injured, the Golden Knights called up Jiri Patera, who sat on the bench behind Jonathan Quick in Carolina, and the organization decided, you know what, Jiri, you're in against the St. Louis Blues. And he definitely delivered, securing his first win as a Golden Knight and his first win in the NHL. But he wasn't alone. His Henderson Silver Knights teammate and Pavel Dorofeev, who had also been recently recalled to on account of the injury to, I think it was Keegan Colasar, somebody was down injured. Ultimately, he wound up scoring his first goal and his first assist in the NHL. First goal wound up being the game winner off of his visor. Just the funniest way you will ever get your first career NHL goal. And I'm sure when he tells people in 10 years what his first goal looks like, he'll tell that story a little bit better, saying he sniped it past Jordan Binnington. But no, you got to bounce off your face, Pavel, and everybody loves you for it. So congratulations to those two players. For Jiri Patera, well-deserved win, and for Pavel Dorofeev, as we'll find out later on, this is the beginning of what would be a very pleasant theme. To finish off the weird road trip, the Golden Knights travel north for some reason from St. Louis to Philadelphia to take on the Flyers. This was another complete game by the Golden Knights, with one notable exception of Shea Theodore being the backdrop for the Flyers' season highlight when he just got absolutely undressed. I think it was in the middle of the third period. But ultimately, the game was really never in doubt. The Golden Knights really made it look easy. Quick gets his fourth win in a row with the Golden Knights. He moves onto the list of Golden Knights goalies who have won their first 4 starts. The list seems to be ever growing and only excludes Marc-Andre Fleury for some reason. Dorofeev scores again. He actually opened up the scoring, I think. He either scored the first or second goal, and this time it wasn't off his face. It was off of a really good wraparound play and beat Hart far side. Ultimately, the one thing that we can really take away from this game, and really this road trip as a whole, is the new look fourth line, the identity line, is really starting to take place. And really, like, you're starting to see what it's supposed to look like. In, like, Howden, Bluger, and whether it be Kolesar or Matteo, depending on whoever's in the lineup, that line looks really, really good. They're really strong on the forecheck, and ultimately they play Bruce Cassidy hockey, and I'm sure that's why he keeps putting them together. It worked really well. They always bring good offense. They're surprisingly strong defensively for a fourth line, and so there's really no way to complain, especially with names like Will Carrier and Nick Waugh out of the lineup at this point. Yeah, this is one of the worst games I've ever seen. This game was really more like a 4-2 game, but the Flames tacked on a few at the end just to hurt our feelings, I guess. It's hard to play at home immediately after a really successful road trip like the Golden Knights had, winning every game but one. And at this point, the Calgary Flames really needed those points. They're fighting neck and neck with the Winnipeg Jets for 8th place in the Western Conference, trying to sneak in as that second wild card. So every point that they can get is absolutely critical at this point. So it's not too surprising that, all things being considered and all factors taking note of, that the Golden Knights got a touchdown scored on them. And so when you get a touchdown scored on you, you go down the field and score a touchdown of yourself, and that's exactly what the Golden Knights did next game out against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Eichel secured his 4th career hat trick, his first one at the Fortress, and obviously the new tradition has been made. It's well reported, whether it be Sportsnet, whether it be Sports Center, whether it be anybody who knows anything about hockey and reporting. Eichel scores his hat trick. He goes into the bin, pulls out a hat, and everybody's like, "Oh, he gets hats for free. Does he really want that hat?" No, Bruce Cassidy told him, "Hey, go grab a hat, start a collection. It's a tradition. We expect you to have a couple more hat tricks going forward." And I, as a fan, expect Eichel to have a couple more. It's his second one of the year since he dunked on Buffalo back in November. But this was a really good game. This is the first hat trick in T-Mobile Arena since Riley Smith potted two and then an empty netter in the spring of 2021 against the St. Louis Blues, which, funny enough, I was at that game. It was the most attended sporting event since the pandemic started. It was the first time that T-Mobile Arena had upped its capacity to 5,000 people. And it was 2 nights before the Golden Knights lost the game that would decide the President's Trophy winner 2 seasons ago. Tainted memories, I know, but hat tricks are always fun, and congratulations, Jack. Oh, and the subtext is Yuri Patera gets his second win in as many starts, so clearly he's a viable NHL option, assuming that everybody gets injured again. The big headline from this game following it is that, Jonathan Quick passes Van Beesbrook for being the second winningest goalie, winningest American-born goalie in history. The Golden Knights scored early, taking a 2-0 lead into the break, and Dorofeyev scored his 4th goal in 5 games, which wound up being another game winner. And yeah, it got close at the end, but these games always get close, especially this time of the year. While the Canucks are way out of it, you never quite know, and any team on any given night can be very good. The Golden Knights made sure to hold on to it, and they, 4-3 win is great. Just add to the list of 1-goal wins that have happened over the last month and a half. So this game is kind of twofold, as it's good to have players coming back, and it's good to get a win, but the aftermath has kind of been concerning. So Logan Thompson returned to the lineup in this game, and he was looking excellent. It was another wire-to-wire win for the Golden Knights, leading 2-0 early, and I think they took a 2-1 lead into the first intermission. The game had some crazy moments, some absolutely comedic moments, and topped off by the moment where Logan Thompson decided in his eternal wisdom to leave the net with a 2-goal lead with 11 minutes to go in the game. At the time we didn't know what was going on, but turns out, a Calgary player knocked the net off, and so they couldn't possibly score, and he knew that. But I don't think anybody else knew it. Bruce didn't know it. The Flames didn't know it. The announcers didn't know it. I didn't know it. And so it was a really funny moment. And then, lo and behold, 2 or 3 minutes later, he would make what appeared to be a routine save, and he'd skate off the ice, go down the tunnel, and leave the game. So Quick came on in relief. The Flames piled on the pressure, kept going, but weren't able to crack Quick, who looked excellent in relief for the last 7-ish minutes of the game and held on to a 3-2 win. Now, this game is definitely a possible playoff preview, and it really had that feel. Both teams scored early and often, and only later in the game did defensive anything start to kick in, as both teams didn't really play defense in the first half of the game, where most of the goals were scored. It was one of the other storylines is that this was Laurent Brossoit's first game in almost a month since getting injured after looking excellent immediately after the All-Star break. I think he had won one but lost 2 in shootouts. And so he looked really, really good. And the Edmonton Oilers are a very high-octane team. And when the Golden Knights took the lead in the third period 3-2, you had to know that they were inevitably going to score. And just a few minutes after the Golden Knights took the lead on a Jonathan Marchessault nuke in transition, they tied it up 3-3, and then a couple of penalties trickled into overtime. And if I had to say, just based on paper, who I thought was going to win in a 3-on-3 overtime between the Knights and Flames, or not Flames, Knights and Oilers, I would have picked the Oilers every time because McDavid, Draisaitl, Kane, Nugent-Hopkins, Nurse, although none of those are really defensemen, so you're never really sure. And it proved on what wound up being the Golden Knights overtime winner in the form of Nick Waugh being left entirely alone. I have one question for the Edmonton Oilers. Where is Evander Kane going on this play? Because while the puck is on the boards in the form of Eichel and he draws attention, Kane skates to the corner, but doesn't put the body on Eichel, leaving Waugh completely alone in the low slot. Eichel sees Waugh in the low slot, throws it to him, and Kane skates behind the net. Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. The other really interesting thing that happens on top of a 4-3 overtime win, mind you, every single game against the Oilers to this point this year has had a final score of 4-3. What's really interesting is the Golden Knights made a little bit of history that likely will never happen again. They are the first team in NHL history to win 4 consecutive games using 4 different goalies. remember, the streak started with Yuri Patera beating the Columbus Blue Jackets, and then Jonathan Quick won the next. Or yeah, did it start with? No, it actually started with it started with Patera beating the Blue Jackets, and then Quick beating the Canucks, and then Thompson technically getting the win against the Flames and getting credited with it because he played long enough, and then Brossoit beating the Oilers. So yeah, a little bit of history right there, minus me being dumb, because I've got it all written down right here. Why didn't I just write that down? I don't know. I'm a little rusty at this. So yeah, the back end of the home and home with the Oilers did not go well. The Golden Knights had their structure broken basically from the puck drop. Marchessault scored early, and then the Oilers answered right back, and then they scored again to go up 2-1, and then Carlson scored a shorthanded goal, and then on that same power play, the Oilers scored again, and yeah, you can't give the best power play in NHL history that many opportunities in the first period alone. They're going to kill you. And that's exactly what happened. They went 2 for 2 in the first period, although they did allow the shorthanded goal. And then from that point on, they just kind of piled it on. Sure, the Golden Knights tied it to make it a quick 3-3, and then it was 4-3, and then 5-3, and then 6-3 on another power play goal, and then we got sick of Quick, and so Brossoit went in and got to confront breakaways his first shot of the game. So 7-3, and then 7-4 because we wanted to feel better, I guess. I wouldn't exactly call this game an alarm bells moment, but it's a little concerning that the Oilers had played the night before in Arizona. And I know it's Arizona. It didn't really take that much effort, but still they were on the back end of a back-to-back with a little bit of travel. And yeah, it was competitive, but the structure was just broken from the start of the game. And I guarantee you Bruce was very upset about that. And the players obviously knew what was going on, as embodied by the fact that only one of them talked to the media in the form of Jonathan Marchessault. So yeah, of course the players knew they messed up, and they're not going to let that happen again. And this other thing is, with this game, they actually had a scenario to clinch the playoffs if they had just beat the Oilers. Or, as it worked out, lost in overtime. But neither of those were on the card when you get throttled 7-4. Another sub-note that I'm a little concerned about, and it kind of highlights the need for Logan Thompson to be healthy when the playoff starts. This is Quick's 7th start in a Golden Knights uniform. He's given up 3 goals or more in 6 of them. And the only game that he didn't was the shutout against the Hurricanes. So I'm not sure if I should be concerned about that, because Quick is a great goalie, and I know he always shines bright when the lights are the brightest in the playoffs, but right now, on my confidence meter, he's number 4 on my confidence behind Thompson, Hill, Brossoit. And the only reason he's ahead of Patera is because Quick has 2 Stanley Cups and a Conn Smythe, and Patera hasn't done anything at the NHL level besides beat the worst team in hockey and the St. Louis Blues. So the goaltending situation is going to be interesting. The injury front is also going to be interesting, and we're going to see what happens down the stretch. So all that's to say, the real question is, where are the Golden Knights right now? Now, VGK can, and likely, hopefully will, fairly certainly they're going to, hopefully on Thursday against the Sharks, they'll end the longest playoff drought in franchise history of a singular year, as all they have to do is have a string of events happen. I think it mostly revolves around whether the Jets or Predators keep losing, and they're in. But really, destiny in your own hands. You beat the Sharks, you're in the playoffs. Yay, whippy. But that really shouldn't be the bar for this team. This team has too much talent. They should be pushing for Pacific Division crown, Western Conference titles, stuff like that. And so that I'm not really going to worry so much about the playoffs, because once this team really got it going after the All-Star break, I knew playoffs were a foregone conclusion. They've had a couple of ugly games over the stretch. I mean, they've lost 4 games since the All-Star break in regulation, I think, and 3 of them have been pretty ugly. But I'm not overly concerned about that, because they played some really good hockey in the interim time. The underlying thing that we have to note is that the injury bug is a little bit concerning. The Golden Knights are one of the hottest teams since the All-Star break, but they've done it with 4 different goalies, and goodness knows how many line combinations on the forward core. The one consistency has been defense. Alec Martinez missed the first game against the Oilers, and they wound up winning, and then he came back against the Oilers in Vegas, and they got beat 7-4. And now I just checked the news, and apparently Theodore isn't joining the Knights on the trip to San Jose. And the wording or the language coming out of the Golden Knights camp is that it's not great. So the one thing that turned this team around was having a full, healthy defensive battery, having your top 6 defensemen being able to play. And, sure, it's good potential to give the Golden Knights prospects some reps. As I saw, Braden Pahal got called up, likely to play in the game in San Jose. But at this time of the year, running down the stretch, you can't afford, especially when you're in a tight divisional race and tight conference race, to have people start getting banged up. Riley Smith is a big one right now. He hasn't been practicing with the team recently. He got injured, I believe, against Calgary. And that was a week ago now, and he hasn't really been back, So it seems like the injury bug is starting to get around. It looks like Will Carrier is done for the season. Chandler Stevenson looks like he's got something wrong with him, because we're at the time of the year where nobody's going to disclose injuries, and so I'm going to hope that Stevenson doesn't, because he just looks a little bit disinterested right now. I hope that's because of a lingering injury and not just because it's not the playoffs yet. But we're going to see what happens. The most concerning injury is obviously the whatever's going on with Logan Thompson, because he came back for that game against Calgary, looked great, and then looks like he may have re-aggravated his lower body injury on a routine save in the third period. So it's a little concerning with the injuries. And the other thing from a coaching perspective that might make Bruce a little bit frustrated is the games have been very sloppy. A lot of 1-goal wins that should have been 2 to 3 goal wins if they just stuck within their process a little bit better. And so that's kind of where we're at. The Golden Knights are in good position to lock up playoffs. That's not a question anymore. And they're in position 1 right now to be the Pacific Division title, or Pacific Division winners, and the Western Conference winners, assuming the Avalanche ever lose, because I think they've won like 9 straight in a row right now or something. It's ridiculous. With 8 games to go, so the maximum amount of points they can get to, I think, is like 114. And I think it'll take about 107 to 110 to win the Western Conference, and by that affect the Pacific Division, because 2 of the top teams are in the Pacific. The Golden Knights did get a bit of a gift last night when, they got creamed by the Oilers. The Kings also happened to lose in regulation to the Flames. And the Kraken in their last start lost to the Wild. And so the Central Division race is getting interesting. The Pacific, assuming that the teams win the games they're supposed to win, hopefully will hold serve with the Golden Knights winning the Pacific. The injury bug is really concerning, more so to the fact that roster availability is kind of a little bit iffy now that we're in the last 10 games. You can't really reactivate anybody off LTIR, which means there will be no Mark Stone for the rest of the year. There will likely be no more Will Carrier. We got Nick Waugh back, which was awesome. He's looked great in his last 2 or 3 games. The immediate concern, obviously, is Smith and Thompson. They're both off. The biggest bright spot in this stretch, aside from the historic moments of first team to win 4 in a row with 4 different goalies, and Yuri Patera getting his first win, and Jonathan Quick being very good for what he is, the most interesting story for the Golden Knights right now is Pavel Dorofeev. Not even a question. Now, I remember back, 3 or 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, actually, when a player burst onto the scene that nobody had ever heard of and suddenly lit the world on fire by the name of Brandon Peary. Now, true Golden Knights fans remember the infamous number 73 flying around and scoring 9 goals in 9 games and scoring in 9 consecutive and being one of the best players until he went ice cold after missing a wide open net against the Wild and was, he went the way of the dodo. Dorofeev seems different. He's smart, he's very fast, he's got a wicked shot, and he's got chemistry with Karlsson and Smith before Smith's injury. So there's a lot to take positives there, and the farm is looking good. We've got Pahal coming up to play against the Sharks probably. So it's been a good opportunity to get these players some NHL reps. And Dorofeev, I think, has basically played his way onto the Game 1 roster if nobody comes back from injuries. So congrats to Pavel, I guess. So we're going to see how the last 8 games go down the stretch. The stretch run is going to be really interesting. It's going to be really competitive. And I'm really excited to watch the Golden Knights play playoff hockey again. I missed it last year so very much. I missed almost having a heart attack every other night. But that being said, I'm excited to be back making videos. The stretch run and the playoffs are going to be super exciting. And I've got a better explanation in 2 videos that are going to be coming out later this week as to where I've been for the last 2 or 3 weeks of Golden Knights hockey. I've been watching every game. I promise. I've been watching every game. I just haven't had the time to react to them or sit down and react to them all at once because I've been a little bit busy. Life happens, and being a senior in college is hard sometimes. But that being said, I appreciate the supports, the occasional comments, and just the fact that I know that there are some people out there who actually watch these, which makes making them all the more worth it. So I thank you guys for sitting down and letting me take up 20-ish minutes of your day. And, thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one.